Hello and welcome. Today we're talking about our latest Jefferson Frank salary survey and the hiring trends within the healthcare sector. Don't forget to put your questions in the comment box on the right-hand side. And thank you all for attending, and we'll get started. My name's Alex Walker. I'm the Vice President of Healthcare and Life Sciences.
Hi, my name is Melissa Epstein. I'm an Associate Vice President for the healthcare team.
Hello, my name is Bill Franzese. I'm an Associate Vice President in charge of Life Sciences.
And my name is Colin Graves, and I'm the founder of North Labs, which is a dedicated advanced tier AWS partner.
Great. Before we dive into the salary survey and some of the trends, I'd like to start by giving you a brief introduction into Jefferson Frank and the healthcare division. I've then passed over to Colin, who'll give you an insight into North Labs, and collectively we'll share our findings and provide you with some pointers on how to attract the best AWS professionals. And we'll then close the webinar out with a Q&A, and you'll be able to ask us any questions that you might have, and we'll do our best to answer them. Right, so Jefferson Frank in numbers. We're the largest AWS specialist staffing agency globally. We launched in 2018 to address the demand for AWS professionals. We've placed over 1,600 candidates globally. Organisation size ranges from SMEs right up to enterprise clients. We actually have over 300 consultants spread across 18 offices around the world. Actually, half of those are based in the US. We also have one of the largest AWS databases for professionals in our space. We recently achieved AWS Advanced Technologies Partner status, and that's something that we're all very, very proud of. To summarize, I feel that we're perfectly in a position to be able to advise you on the AWS jobs market. So Jefferson Frank Healthcare Division. To give you guys a bit more of a brief overview of our specialist division, we have 20 dedicated recruiters solely focused on the healthcare and life sciences space. Every consultant is AWS certified. They go through in-depth training on the industry around compliance, and they cover the whole of the US. What we've done is we've focused quite a few of the consultants on what we call zones or hubs. This allows us to find the best candidates for our clients pretty quickly. As mentioned before, we support a range of businesses ranging from health tech startups, businesses that are looking for one or two of their first AWS employees, right up to global pharmaceutical businesses and healthcare organizations who look to expand across the globe. So, Colin, over to you to talk about North Labs.
Sure thing. Yeah. So thanks for the introduction. North Labs is a dedicated AWS partner. We are going to be greeting 2021 as a premier partner, but we focus on highly regulated industries and helping them adopt the cloud. Not only migrating to the cloud, but what happens when you get there? How do you remain secure, compliant, and scalable? Making sure that you're safeguarding your critical patient data at all times. So I've personally been in the cloud space since 2007, was one of the first 10 fully certified AWS engineers in the world, and it's the only language I speak at this point. So happy to be contributing in some small amount to this presentation today.
Great, thanks, Colin. So, introduce the Jefferson Frank Salary Survey. It's our annual industry-leading report. It's based on over 62,000 data points. This includes self-reported information from AWS professionals worldwide. We collated this information and combined it with our own data points. So, as mentioned earlier, the 1,600 people we placed globally, this has actually allowed us to get a much better picture on what people are currently earning. I personally think it's a great snapshot of the AWS ecosystem. It's something that I think is very, very valuable for both job seekers and employers. I'd like to move on to the next slide to talk a bit more about market challenges in the tech space. So something that I find that's really, really interesting, 40% of all organizations have or are starting to migrate to the cloud. It's predicted that 60% of all organizations will be in the cloud by 2021, and 80% by 2022. We've already seen that demand outstrips supply, so I'm pretty sure over the next couple of years it's going to be tougher and tougher to hire the best people. It was only last week that AWS reInvent, we were talking about some of the technologies that are now being released on AWS, and something that was released was Quick Insights. It's a feature that's powered by machine learning. So we're seeing that technology is consistently rapidly changing. And Colin, I guess to ask you a question, do you have any examples of ML or AI technologies that you've seen within the healthcare sector?
I do, yeah. We're actually working with a group right now that owns the largest private patient database in the country. They're based off the West Coast, and we've helped them move all of that workload into AWS. Obviously, that's frightening to a lot of people thinking about, how safe is my data going to be in the cloud? What customers come to find is that they actually have a lot more control over the safeguards and policies they're able to put in place compared to an on-premise environment. So we've helped build out that entire data lifecycle workflow, which also has steps along the way to incorporate, like you said, machine learning, anything from predictive analytics to anomaly detection within their data when the data just doesn't make sense to a trained algorithm. But it also gives these teams the ability to consume, unique subsets of the data to arrive at insights that otherwise would have been impossible to find because of traditional data silos in on-premise installation. So it's really opening up a lot of opportunities to explore that data and thus create an even more valuable platform for their patients.
Very interesting. Thanks, Colin. So the good news. Overall, AWS ecosystem, I think, is in a very, very strong position. 73% of AWS partner employees tell us they expect to see an increase in their workload over the coming year. 61% have told us that they hold at least one AWS certification, and 37% of those actual 61% say that they have received a salary increase after getting certified. So I think as a result, 62% of what we've seen in the AWS professionals space is satisfied with their current role. We'll go into some ways a little bit later on that we think can help improve this number, and talk a little bit more about some of the quick wins and things that you can do to reduce some of the churn that you might be expecting in the space. So 3 really hot topics that have come out of this survey, and Bill will talk to them a little bit later on. First is learning and development, and the second being diversity in the workplace. And thirdly, and something that I want to touch on, is remote working. Before COVID, interestingly enough, 23% of employees worked from home on a full-time basis. That's now increased, as you can see, to 84%. Which is a huge jump, and I think personally something that's here to stay. Colin, I want to lean on you once again, just sort of get a question to you. How has remote working shaped your business?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because we've seen this paradigm shift from regional hubs to people working out of their basement or a separate bedroom, which sounds like it wouldn't be beneficial, but the catch there is that you can go to the talent. AWS professionals are not concentrated in one single locale, and so if you're able to spread your reach, you're able to find the very best talent. I mean, some of our best engineers, aren't from our Chicago office or our Austin office. They're from upstate New York and Tulsa, Oklahoma. So you're able to identify where that talent exists and really unlock the value they're able to bring to your organization by eliminating those regional office barriers and allowing these engineers to work remotely.
Right. So in terms of overall job satisfaction, we've seen, as you can see here, that 62% of our respondents seem to be satisfied in their role, while 15% told us they were dissatisfied with it. Personally, I think it's very interesting that almost a quarter of the respondents have told us they feel indifferent about their job. To improve this, I think there's a few ways that could be considered. I believe that supporting training and development, or just simply outlining their career progression within the business, is something that can combat this. Some other points that are pretty easy and pretty simple to achieve are company culture, benefits and office environment. But I do think that obviously over the past couple of months that this has been reshaped by the recent events. So it's probably a conversation you guys are already having. So let's talk about the money. When it comes to AWS professionals, 51% of permanently employed respondents actually are satisfied and feel well compensated for their work. In comparison, 49% think they're either undervalued or unsure on how much they should be paid. We found that our salary surveys help employers and also employees find a realistic benchmark and make sure everyone's getting paid the right amount of money to keep your employees happy. I'll actually now hand over to Melissa, who can talk a little bit more about upskilling your team.
Thank you, Alex. So in our salary survey, we asked AWS professionals what training and development they're lacking and what they'd like to see more of. So as you can see here, our respondents told us that they'd like more training, as well as more time during work hours dedicated to learning and development. As we've seen, training and development opportunities do rank lowest when it comes to job satisfaction. So this is definitely a very important area for us to be focusing on. Now let's take a look at AWS certifications. It comes at no surprise that 61% of our respondents told us that they hold at least one AWS cert, and 13% are working toward one. Certifications are definitely essential to ensure employees have the right knowledge to compete in an evolving industry. This isn't only beneficial for employees, but also for the employers, as there are long-term benefits for companies who invest their time and money in upskilling their staff. Now passing it over to Colin, I'd like to ask how you guys facilitate career development and if your organization has any learning and development pathways in place.
We do, yeah. Every function of the business is slightly different, but we like to put roadmaps in place to give people a logical point of progression, something to measure themselves against from a certification perspective. You know, oftentimes you see these organizations, sort of hire AWS professionals and leave them to their own devices to, stay current on things and stay on top of best practices, all the while setting up an organization perhaps for the first time and trying to deliver value from, an engineering perspective. So it's a lot to absorb for these professionals. And so, my advice to anybody listening is if you can establish a roadmap for each function in the business to take them from, no certifications all the way through to, the most pragmatic or relevant professional certifications, it's going to give them that roadmap to follow, which will make their lives quite a bit easier. But also, you'll see the upside from the continual progression they hold from an AWS knowledge standpoint.
All right, great. Now we're going to discuss what holds people back from getting certified. So while 42% said that they feel like they don't need to be certified, we learned that 41% of respondents see the time commitment as their primary obstacle, followed by cost implications and lack of support from employers. As we're aware, AWS professionals are in very high demand, as there's a large disequilibrium of available talent. Hiring in the AWS ecosystem continues to be extremely competitive. So one easy way to make yourself more attractive to employees is by helping with certification costs and allowing them to study alongside their work commitments. Certifications not only benefit your employees, but they also improve your company's productivity, efficiency, and long-term cost reduction as they help with employee retention. It's definitely surprising to see that 42% of respondents don't feel the need to be certified, especially in such a technically complex market. Colin, do you think that this data point comes as a surprise? And if not, why do you think 42% don't see the value in getting certified?
No, I don't see it as a surprise, especially if you compare the 42% that say they don't need to be certified with that 39% who say they believe experience with AWS is more important. And that's because these professionals haven't really been met by their employer in terms of putting a requirement on it or making deliberate effort to push for those certifications. And in a nascent market like AWS, it's still so new. Obviously, people find that experience with AWS, it must be the most important thing, right? But the cloud is so broad and so deep and moves so fast that if you have experience with AWS that's 5 years old, you might as well not have experience because the entire ecosystem has completely shifted in that period of time. So with the certification process, at the very least, it's a nice barometric reading of these candidates to say, all right, Susan has demonstrated proficiency from a solutions architect professional standpoint within the last 3 years, because that's how long these certifications last. So I think employers need to be doing more to promote certifications, and also, again, going back to establishing that roadmap for people to follow to grow within their own career. It's only going to make people more valuable and also likely stick around longer.
Great. All right, now let's talk about the best ways to attract AWS healthcare candidates. While it's definitely important to keep your current staff happy, it's also crucial to look at the benefits that attract the very best talent. According to our findings, the top 3 benefits include remote work, PTO, and bonuses. It's also important to note that not all bonuses need to take the form of cash, and other options such as gift cards, vouchers, technology items, and extra PTO are all different things that can be used to incentivize staff at a much smaller cost. As mentioned, workplaces worldwide have fundamentally changed since the onset of COVID, and what was once seen as a perk may now become mandatory. So when it comes to attracting talent into your organization, this year is going to require a combination of creativity and flexibility with your benefits package overall. Now we'll move into why candidates are drawn to healthcare companies to begin with. We've identified 4 key factors here, and these include stability and high growth, mission-driven, exciting products, and job satisfaction. Not only do healthcare organizations provide employees with a seemingly more stable company, but they also work with state-of-the-art technologies, giving employees the chance to work with products that we had limited access to 5 to 10 years ago. Finally, healthcare companies also give candidates the opportunity to truly make a difference in the lives of others, something that's definitely important today. All right, so we've talked about what attracts and retains the best talent, but we also need to understand why people are leaving. So 35% of AWS professionals anticipate leaving their employer in the coming year, and 17% are unsure if they'll stay or go. Most of the results here paint a clear picture of the AWS ecosystem full of eager professionals who want to improve, develop, and take their career to the next level. There's no one-size-fits-all solution for retention, but we do know that employers should reward and progress their high performers to ensure that they don't look elsewhere. So bringing it back to Colin here, would you say that this data validates what you've seen as a hiring manager in the ecosystem and across your customer base?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because you cite, 62% of current professionals are happy within their role, but 52% of those folks are planning to leave their employer. And I think it's stagnation. I really do. So again, going back to that certification and that training roadmap is going to be increasingly important as we go into 2021. But I also think there's an opportunity to let people explore within the ecosystem in a manner that wasn't, otherwise very possible in sort of legacy IT setups. In the cloud, you're able to set up sandbox environments where engineers can play around with new cutting edge technologies, right? Think machine learning, think artificial intelligence, serverless technologies, without having any sort of risk to the organization. So, you can set that up through an AWS partner. You can set that up directly through AWS. They'll provide credits to offset the costs of that exploration. But at the very least, what it's going to do is keep people sharp and perhaps even allow some light bulbs to go off in terms of how the organization might be able to take next steps from a cloud native perspective.
Great, thanks for that. Yeah, I think we can all agree that it's definitely very costly and timely to hire and have employee turnover. So those are some great tips there. Thanks. And moving on to equality, inclusion, and diversity, we can see that 61% of respondents said that their employers have a statement or policy in place, but 26% are unsure whether such policy exists. There are definitely clear benefits for a company in adopting effective diversity and inclusion policies. And some of these include having a wider talent pool to recruit from, an increased likelihood of retaining staff from diverse backgrounds, and greater creativity and innovation drawn from a number of different perspectives. So to ensure success, your policy needs to be embedded within your organization to truly be effective, with a visible commitment from the top down for your entire workforce to feel adequately represented.
Thank you, Melissa. Now I'll lead into the 3 AWS healthcare hiring trends and insights you need to know for 2021. They focus around skills, compliance, and location. There's a great need for DevOps candidates who come from a software engineering background, particularly with Java and Python development skills. 35-year-old Python has overtaken Java to become the second most popular programming language. We see that 84% of our roles require candidates that have a software background. Kubernetes plays a pivotal role in healthcare by enabling organizations to leverage technology to improve communications, deliver faster services, and reduce overall costs. Kubernetes has become the gold standard for container management. In compliance, organizations continue to seek candidates who have exposure to HIPAA, FHIR, and high trust compliance within IT and AWS. For more details on this, I'll pass it over to Colin.
Yeah, I think organizations are. It's important to have that framework in mind from a HIPAA and high trust perspective, because architecting solutions in AWS is going to be different in that light. Not every service or tool within AWS can be backed by a BAA. So it's important for AWS architects and engineers to have sort of that framework in mind as they go about building out solutions, just to make sure that everything they're doing adheres to those frameworks that healthcare organizations, trust in so dearly and place a lot of weight on. So it's really no surprise to me that organizations are seeking folks with HIPAA and high trust compliance. It takes some time to get used to, and it's I think a solid foundation for these engineering candidates to have as they continue, learning about the philosophy of building in the cloud and progressing in their skill set that way.
Absolutely. And thank you, Colin, for that insight. When we talk about locations, emerging healthcare organizations are far more open to hiring full-time remote employees versus larger enterprise healthcare providers. Larger organizations have added costs due to multiple offices and are looking for people to return. Emerging AWS healthcare startups have either been using shared office spaces or have been able to hire remote already. We are seeing that the Northeast and Midwest have been the 2 major hiring areas during the pandemic. Now I'll move on to some of the key issues we are seeing when a health company is looking for talent. As Alex mentioned earlier, 60% of all organizations will be in the cloud by the end of 2021. And due to the large influx of businesses migrating to the cloud, the competition for top talent will increase as well. One key issue we have noticed is that speed matters. Shortening your interview process and streamlining the interview stages towards making an offer as soon as possible is vital to ensure you're bringing the most highly sought after candidates on board. Follow up on this, we will discuss some of the main points that will help healthcare companies like yourself attract the best talent in a competitive market. Some of these may seem obvious, but as this survey suggests, you'd be surprised how many organizations aren't aware of these key points. Being flexible with your requirements is very important. With the complexity of the skill sets, the nature of the market, securing an 80% fit against your original desired requirements will set you apart from competitors seeking to find candidates that often just do not exist in the market. If salary is not flexible, skill and reduced years of experience requirements can be a great way to hire excellent candidates within budget. Also, as Alex discussed earlier, prior to COVID, only 23% of the workforce worked from home, and today that number has grown exponentially to 84%. If you're not offering remote flexibility, you really are only remaining competitive within 16% of the market in this regard. We recommend using desirable tech stacks as a selling point for your opportunities. Most companies do not realize how attractive it is for candidates to work with exciting tech and how that ties into their career progression. Before moving to the Q&A, I'd like to go through these three main takeaways from the presentation. We have seen that AWS professionals are concerned with when it comes to remote working. We're expecting remote work to remain in some form or another, even once the pandemic is over. And candidates looking to their next role aren't just interested in your policy now, they want to know how they'll be working in the long term. Remote work is such a desirable benefit. You need to know how you'll approach it beyond the end of 2020 and remain competitive in the market. There is also added internal benefit to opening up opportunities to remote candidates. Colin touched on this earlier. This allows you to expand your talent pool regardless of geographical locations. In the past, clients have been limited to candidates that are restricted to a commutable distance from their office location and had to pay large relocation bonuses, which also comes with uncertainty. With remote work, your talent pool is limitless. Secondly, we've seen the importance of training and development for your teams. As we also saw earlier in the job satisfaction slide, training and development and career progression had by far the lowest job satisfaction percentages of any other category at 49% and 41% respectively. This is the largest opportunity to capitalize on the market and provide a solution where competitors are failing. Providing opportunities to upskill your team not only improves performance and growth internally, but improves retention rates as well. Many make the mistake of believing salary is the main motivating factor behind employees leaving. However, as we saw earlier, the highest percentage of people who leave their jobs do so because they need new challenges and they have lack of career progression. Finally, we discuss hiring from diverse talent pools. What you are offering may attract different applicants to the role, perhaps even some who may not have applied under normal circumstances. This year has taught us a lot about our work and personal lives and how they can coexist, and offering flexibility to accommodate that will put you in a strong position to attract candidates who simply aren't applying for roles with your competitors. When it comes to diversity, we saw the importance of making sure that what you're offering to your employees is inclusive to your employees' individual needs, not to a specific group only. Only 58% of employees are satisfied with their company culture, where diversity and inclusion matters most. This brings our webinar to a close. If you have any questions, we will now be available for the Q&A.
Amazing. Thanks, Bill. Great work. I hope everyone enjoyed our webinar today, and to give you a chance to ask us some questions now. And obviously, we've got a few that have already been put to us. So, Bill, I believe you have the first question.
Yeah, so the first one I got was, has COVID changed the hiring cycle?
And Melissa, that's for you to answer.
Yep. So I'd say that COVID has definitely changed the hiring cycle. A few trends that we've noticed is that processes are definitely moving a lot quicker. What used to take 4 to 6 weeks to hire is now down to 2 to 3 weeks. I think that's due to organizations doing fewer interviews and also being able to utilize video interviews rather than face-to-face. There's definitely a wider pool of talent available right now as remote work is encouraged. So the market is just as competitive as ever. And I think hiring managers understand the need to move quick to ensure that they don't miss out on these great candidates.
Great. Melissa, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for you. So I wanted to know if there was something specific about the AWS healthcare ecosystem that you think attracts candidates to it.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a lot there's a lot to be said for working in the healthcare industry. I know from my experience of working with many clients, it seems that there's a definite feeling of doing something for the greater good. Healthcare organisations are obviously a very different mindset to, say, a finance or a retail organisation, where end users are obviously benefiting greatly from whatever product or service they've been provided. I also think one of the major benefits as well, we've seen in the last 6 to 8 months during this pandemic, that healthcare organisations are still hiring, whilst many other industries and many other businesses out there are actually on hold, or even putting some people on furlough. So I think it speaks highly for the industry itself, and it's definitely a good place to be working. I also have a question that was fired in from Mohammed. So Bill, I'll pass this one to you. What do you expect the new normal to look like when it comes to hiring AWS candidates?
The new normal. I think the main one, the obvious one is the remote work, right? I mean, there's going to be an aspect of remote work. It's in some capacity, and no matter what. I think that the new normal is something that we've heard a lot of, especially in the early on stages of COVID. And I think the most important thing with the new normal is that it's ever changing. I mean, it changes daily, weekly, monthly. In the beginning, people thought it would just be over in 6 weeks. Now, some people are thinking July 2021. Some people really don't even know. So I think the most important thing is just to remain consultative, remain ahead of the game, open communication, weekly follow-ups, what you're seeing, what we're seeing. Just the consultative approach and staying ahead of the trends rather than following them is going to be probably the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a great point. I really do believe that downloading this salary survey can help you guys all understand some of the trends that are out there, but also prepare for new trends in 2021. So it seems that's all we have in terms of questions. So thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Bill. I'll now close this webinar out. We appreciate you guys joining us today, and make sure you download the salary survey if you haven't yet done so. I'm sure there'll be a follow-up email at some point for you to be able to do that. Thank you all, and have a great evening.